Om Shanti. Welcome to Masters of Change. We often struggle to get change in our lives. Change can make us uncomfortable almost always. However, if we're really trying to get in a change in our life, the real values that we want to work on may be bravery and consistency. Because any new thing in your life needs you to be brave. And any new thing to be implemented in your life needs you to be consistent. Today we have with us Brother Charlie from Melbourne. He has been practicing Raj Yoga meditation for over 4 decades. He has a rich experience of using spirituality and experimenting with meditation in his daily life. He brings along a bag of stories and challenges that he has flown over, and will be sharing those with us today. We welcome you on the show. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you so much, Sister
Om
Priya.
Shanti.
Om Shanti.
Brother Charlie, we would want to understand from you. Let's rewind a bit. Let's go back to when you were around in the 20s. How did you chance upon meditation?
Well, that's quite a long story. As you mentioned, I'm from Melbourne. I grew up in Australia. And I think from quite a young age, I was a searcher. You know, at school, my friends called me Swami. My nickname was Swami.
Okay.
So you can get an idea. I love philosophy and things like that. And you know, when you're a teenager and you see so much injustice in the world and you wonder, what can I do? So Australia at that time was involved in the Vietnam War, and I used to go on marches and things like that. But I went to university and I was studying architecture.
Okay.
But this search was getting stronger and stronger. So I said to my parents, I'm just going to take a break from my study.
Okay.
And I took a one-way ticket to Kuala Lumpur. But I often see that's where my education began. Because just being 20 years old, I actually lived with Buddhists in a Buddhist monastery. I'm actually in Thailand. I live with Sikhs. I live with Taoists, who's a Chinese religion.
Yeah.
I live with Muslims during Ramadan. I came to India. I dipped my toes in the Ganges. I went up into the Himalayas, met a Swami. Tried meditation. I went and met the Dalai Lama in Dharamsala. So everywhere I was going, and actually it was interesting. It wasn't really conscious. I was sort of on this journey, but I always ended up in spiritual communities. But I loved it because, you just have a little window into other people. But my question everywhere, I loved the philosophy, but everywhere I would ask, how do you experience? How do you turn a belief system, a doctrine, a philosophy into an internal experience? And I lived in a Christian community in Belgium, but then I settled in London and I was shopping around. I was working in London. Actually, I had a job at the Royal Shakespeare Theatre Company. I was working in the theatre there. But as I was shopping around, I came to a place called the Spiritualist Association of Great Britain. And they would give all sorts of talks. And when I was there, there was a talk by Sister Jenti and Daddy Janki, the former head of the Brahma Kumaris. And quite honestly, as soon as I saw their faces, I could tell they were experiencing something, because we can read each other, can't we, through our face and our vibrations. And I was really attracted. And in a sense, it was almost familiar to me in a strange sort of way. So they invited me to the meditation center, and I did a meditation course. And quite honestly, it made a lot of sense to me, It just, and immediately my main question was answered, because when I was sort of taught who I was and how to connect with God, I started to experience. And that was really what my quest was.
How wonderful is that? So after this talk, in life we get so many emails, messages, these messages from the higher being. We come across these things, but we don't take that first step. to check really what is it, what's behind it, where is this coming from. So after you heard this talk, you met them, how were things? What did you do? And how did you really, explore this path then?
Well, I did this introductory course.
Yeah.
And as I said, it made a lot of sense to me. And quite frankly, in my childhood, I went to a Christian school. And when I was 12, in the Christian tradition, you're confirmed in the church.
Yeah.
Which is sort of like a formal entry.
Yeah.
And I used to go every Sunday to these classes, and after a few months my parents said, "What have you learned?" And I announced to them as a very wise 12-year-old, "I think I'm an atheist." Because I found it very hard. The God they were talking about was a very judgmental, punishing, authoritarian sort of person, and I couldn't relate to it.
Yeah.
But then as I was traveling, I became an agnostic, which means I was open to who is God. But really, and within a few weeks, I was meditating, and I had an incredible experience of really connecting with God.
Yeah.
And feeling a purity of love that I'd never tasted. And I really had a good family, a really lovely family. They were very close, loving family, but this was something absolutely unique, I would say. And I felt completely loved, and it almost like the feeling was, I've come home, this is where I belong. In a sense, I began to really have a new relationship with myself. And that's when I really began to explore this relationship with God. And even to this day, I don't really consider myself religious.
Yeah.
I just like to feel I have a really natural, loving relationship with God in that way.
Brother, I'm sure, practicing meditation gets a lot of changes in us, physically, internally. I have two questions here. How did meditation change your self-image? And the second being, what were the physical, external changes that were visible to people?
I would say the first question, there was a huge change in how I saw myself. And really, being now involved for around 47 years, and I think I've visited most countries in the world, talked to all types of people, and I believe the biggest human struggle is to stay in a sense of self-value, my self-respect. And almost instantly, I felt a real change in my relationship with myself. And I sort of, in a way, I felt I often saw myself here, and when I sat in meditation, God saw me here. Yeah. And this is the truth. And so this incredible, it's the biggest learning curve of life, I believe, is to step back into my own value and step out of this self-created prison, this incredible prison, which we put ourselves in of what I'm not, what I can't do, what's happened, which just holds me, and you break into. And really, I think probably the greatest benefit for me on this spiritual journey is the gift of self-respect. And I remember in one of our regular classes, it was said that, in a sense, the spiritual journey is taking the gift of self-respect. And when you do that, to the extent you have self-respect, you can respect everyone. Yeah. To the extent you have self-respect, you will be humble. And to the extent you have self-respect, you will be loving and you will be loved. And so my self-image has changed enormously, but it's still changing. Still changing in that sense. But to me, I've found that the more I live in that self-value, life becomes easy. Yeah. In your mind, how sometimes you have fears and anxieties about outcomes and situations and personalities. I can honestly say that's really not around anymore. Right. But it's step by step. It's not rapid. It's just a slow change.
Sure.
And the second question was, how did I change physically? Yeah. In the sense, do you mean the way I live my life, or literally?
No, not physical features, I'm sure, but external changes that came about in your life.
Yeah, I think that, I really found that I was much more interested in, I suppose, community service and things like that. So rather than a life where you're always looking for entertainment, always looking for the next fun thing to do, well, I felt quite content in myself. And I really feel the most rewarding life is the life of giving, in a way, you know, the life of service. And I remember once there was a conference in Sydney at the Sydney Opera House of Psychiatrists. And I read one psychiatrist presented a paper that the most emotionally, mentally, spiritually balanced people are the givers, you know, the people who really give service in life. And I think that's how, and I live very simply, very, very simply. I mean, I grew up in a family, I had everything. There was nothing lacking. But I don't feel anything lacking, but I live totally simply. And I enjoy that.
And your family was conducive to this change? They accepted it?
Some did, and some took time, as you could imagine.
Yeah.
But they did. They did accept it because they saw, I think they thought at first, you know, he's young, he'll grow out of this.
Yeah.
But I think they were surprised that I really stuck with it for a long time. But I've always kept a really close relationship with them.
Okay.
So even though I wasn't living with them, I was living in a meditation center. You know, my father only died a few years ago in his 90s, but I wouldn't ever go a week without talking to him. And I was, you know, really had this good friendship, and I think he really, you know, respected my life, my choice of my lifestyle. And he never, you know, I suppose he would have liked me to, you know, follow in his footsteps in his career and this sort of thing.
Yeah.
But he never said anything to me, and he always supported me.
So, brother, you were in London, you did the course, you started going to everyday meditation classes. What happened after that? Now, you know, being a student to being a teacher, there is a journey involved. How did you travel that path?
Well, I think in the Brahma Kumaris, you just, there's no real training. You just do it, you know. And actually, I think 3 or 4 weeks after I did the course, I even sat with someone and gave a few lessons.
Okay, that was pretty quick.
But you know what I loved about it was that the more you teach, the more you learn, because people ask wonderful questions. And you know, we don't pretend to have perfect answers for everything, but it makes you think.
Yeah.
And I really love that. And I really feel for a very full life, you know, the nature of a beautiful life, when you have that loving relationship with God, and then you express that love in supporting others, helping others. And that's not feeling that others should believe what I do, but you offer them some tools for their life. And you know, when you teach, I think it's a very uplifting experience. It's very uplifting. And, you know, some people take a lot, some people take just a little bit, but that's okay. And what I really love in Australia, you know, in the Brahma Kumaris, people from all religions come to our centres.
Okay.
And in fact, in Sydney, where I was in our centre, we had sisters living in the centre, Hindu, Christian, Muslim, Buddhist and Jewish.
Wow.
All living together.
Wow.
And I think that's a great message in this world where there's so much sort of, I don't know, conflict sometimes between traditions and within traditions as well.
Yeah.
And yet we all live together in that sort of loving and respectful way. So I really enjoyed that.
So how did you work on spreading the message in Australia? What were the activities, the initiatives that were taken?
You know, we, at the moment, we have 4 live-in retreat centres because what we found personally in Western cultures, you know, people are quite educated and very heady, you know, in that way, quite. Yeah. And what they really want is an experience. So we've found that we have 2 near Sydney, a beautiful one in the Blue Mountains, 132 acres. Okay. It's a World Heritage Area. Okay. It's really beautiful, and it has streams and little waterfall and things like that. And when people come there and they not only listen to knowledge and meditate, but they have a little window. We have pure vegetarian food, and it's like they're offered a bit of a lifestyle.
Yeah.
And we've found that people really love the atmosphere.
Okay.
So we never really, as I was saying earlier, teach to convert people. We just offer people improvement in their quality of life because, as we all know, it's a world of depression and anxiety and all those sorts of things. So I found that people really love that, but we do all sorts of courses. We do retreats for all sorts of groups.
Okay.
And even recently, for instance, in some of our retreat centres, we've done a lot of retreats for refugee women from places like Afghanistan, Iraq.
Okay. Wow.
And it's amazing. And I really love that people from the Jewish women come every year and do a retreat at our place. We've had Muslim girls from school do retreats.
Okay.
So all the faith traditions, and they sort of feel comfortable, and we welcome them.
Yeah.
And some of them really don't want to follow what we teach totally, but all of them love the awareness of the self.
Yeah.
And as you were asking earlier, that sense of self-respect growing and that connection with God. We've even had Christian priests come and do the course, things like that.
Brother Charlie, at this point, a very pertinent question comes to my mind. If I come from a particular religion, can I still come and learn meditation, go back and continue to practice both my religion and meditation?
Absolutely.
Yeah?
Yeah. Quite frankly, many people I find do that.
Okay.
For instance, we had one Christian minister in Sydney, and he was from Yorkshire, Englishman.
Yeah.
And he had a church, and he just loved the meditation so much. He put a meditation room in his church. We used to go every week and teach meditation.
Okay.
He actually came 9 times to Mount Abu.
Wow.
And he really loved, in a sense, the atmosphere, the purity that I think is something special that the Brahma Kumaris offer. And we've had many, you know, I've been in Sri Lanka when there was a Buddhist monk, and he had a temple, and he used to get all his people to learn meditation.
Okay.
Yeah, he was an extraordinary person. So, you know, I think what I feel is that yes, there's specific philosophy, but the core teaching is relevant to every human soul too.
Okay.
It's like a self-awareness that can improve the quality of their life. So if they don't want to follow, then that's absolutely fine.
Okay. So there is no conversion. It's only addition to what my existing knowledge is.
Yeah, no conversion.
Which is very safe to understand.
Yep, there's no membership fee, nothing. But if people want to come from their hearts, they're absolutely welcome. But I'm finding, you know, there's a lot more interest in what we do. What's happened around the world is, you know, there's mindfulness has happened, for instance.
Yeah.
In some of the universities in Australia, every student, 70, 80,000 are offered meditation.
Okay.
And so people really see meditation as a really positive thing, a very, very positive thing, because everyone knows that, you know, the mind is in overdrive, and we're so educated about the world outside, but so uneducated about our inner world. And I find that such a paradox that we know so much about the world out there. We're a professor and a emeritus this, and yet can't stop my own thinking, can't stop my own fears, deal with my own fears or worries.
Right.
And what I find is people are very aware today, but where do I get the power to implement what I know? And I think that's what the Brahma Kumaris offer, Raj Yoga offers, is that an internal willpower, not to become a victim of my own inner world, but really to be able to change myself fundamentally.
From what you say, I feel that, you know, to bring in any change in our life, it's not only knowledge, not only determination or consistency that's required. It's actually power. And that is something we lack. Because I may be reading about something on a daily basis, I'm still not able to implement it because I lack that power.
It's so true. You know, in one retreat, we had a whole group of participants.
Okay.
And actually, all of them came to the conclusion, these were just new people.
Okay.
We know what we want to change. We know what we want to be like. We know we want to let go anger. The one question is, where do I get the power?
Yeah.
And honestly, I think when the soul really knows how to connect the consciousness, the mind with God, the intellect with God, that's an unlimited source of willpower, in a sense, to not fall into the habits of, you know, the old habits and the old ways. Of course, you know, you go up and down a bit, but generally you go on a positive direction.
Yeah, yeah. Brother, for our viewers, I think, you know, this is a question that pops in our minds every time we listen to someone. What is the way to really look at change in life? Any kind of change, not just a spiritual change or, you know, adding meditation to one's routine, but any kind of change. How do I embrace it and, you know, get a positive impact in my life from that change?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question, because I think, you know, people often are young and out there, but I think most people are terrified of change. Because we've lost our self-respect, we feel so insecure. And so what I know, if it remains the same, I feel comfortable. But if anything around me in my family, my workplace, even society and the culture changes, it threatens my sense of who I am. And I find that the more I'm on this journey of soul consciousness and rebuilding my self-image, my self-respect, I can feel comfortable no matter how much the world changes around me. And I often have the image for me that when I started, everything out there would affect me. You know, people's opinions of me, attitudes. You know, it does impinge on our mind, so our moods are going like this. But the more I felt under the influence of God, you know, the divine, the more I felt there, that was the main influence on my mind. That's constant, that's stable. I felt less and less affected by things around me. And honestly, I feel that from what I was to what I am today, you know, when I started, I think I was like that. And then after a while, you go like that. And now I really feel quite
synchronized,
stable, regardless of people, opinions, situations, atmospheres, changes, this sort of thing. And that just makes life much more enjoyable. But it takes patience.
Yes, you know? I'm sure it's taken 47 years.
It has.
I'm sure it takes time. So another thing, again, coming from what you've just shared with us, for any change to really have that impact that I was asking you about, one needs to be very patient.
One does.
So power, patience, openness, saying yes. Oh, there's a lot to change.
Yeah.
There is a lot. Brother, you know, I understand that you've been doing so much of service in Australia. All the wonderful retreats that you've shared about. It is so intriguing to know. I'm sure you must have faced a challenge that, you know, really looked like a big one to you. Because I'm sure a small challenge will not challenge you, given your level of stability. But something that sort of shook you for a second, something that moved you, and, you know, wherein that time of self-doubt came, or you didn't know where to go. What did you do at that time? Did you still, even at that time, received the Almighty's help? Was it available?
You know, I think that when I first started my practice, yes, things would shake me up. And it would take me a while to get connected once again. But I think the more I've really had a daily practice, it's like, as I said, I feel more and more uninfluenced by things. And I think the thing that influences most people, I would say, is not being loved by people, not feeling rejected, feeling unloved, not belonging. That's probably the greatest sort of sadness for the human spirit.
Right.
And so, you know, you might, sometimes I say to people, you have 100 friends and family and colleagues, 99 love you and one hates you. Who do you think about?
Yeah, true.
We get obsessed with this person. But I think over the years, I think I've really transformed that. And I feel, you know, I had this saying for myself, only my ego accepts sorrow. So if I'm allowing myself to be hurt by someone's attitude or behavior, it's actually not them. And the more I've taken responsibility, actually it's my reaction to them, I found that the faster I felt I changed and I didn't sort of take, but it, you know, as was said 2 or 3 times, it takes time. And you know the story of the hare and the tortoise. Yeah. It's the story of spiritual life. Because some people are like the hares, you know. A problem comes, a family member passes away. Oh, I've got to meditate, I've got to change. Yeah. You know. But after a few months, we stop again. Right. But what I've seen over the years, that the tortoises are these people every day. Just a little bit, just a consistent. We meditate and we practice as we go about our life. We're just learning and learning about myself. And I've seen people's faces completely change. Yeah. And that's one of the most rewarding things in life. You know, sometimes those faces are a bit etched with sadness. Life is and light and beauty comes back, and that's one of the most beautiful things. It's amazing when the mind changes, even the facial expression completely
It's the window to the mind.
It is, yeah.
So brother, from what you say, I understand that meditation also prepares us for the challenges which are yet to come in our life. You know, I don't have to meditate today because today there is a big challenge facing me. I want to meditate today so that I can accumulate that power to face that challenge one day.
That's so true. Yeah. And that's where I think, you know, I often feel you can do meditation as a hobby. Yeah. You can do it as a discipline. But you know, people who do it as a discipline, what I find is some people are they meditate every morning, but as soon as they finish meditation, their mind reverts to their old thinking. But when it's a lifestyle, it's really like, who am I? I'm a peaceful soul. I'm going to live my life as a peaceful soul. Yeah. And I'm not going to give that peace or self-respect away to anyone or anything. And when it becomes like that, it becomes an incredible power, in a sense. Meditation prepares you for everything. And what I find, meditation gives you a very sweet and natural detachment from things. And to me, detachment is about being very loving, really caring, very close, good communication, but uninfluenced by. Yeah. Because I think people are today, because we're empty, everything impinges on our. We're so delicate and sensitive to so many things. And that means that you step into the day and you don't know how you're going to feel at the end of the day. Am I going to be disturbed by my boss or a colleague or whatever? But I feel that the more I feel close to God, you're naturally you become naturally beyond influence. Yeah. So you become a natural observer of life rather than an absorber of life. Absolutely. Yeah, and that's such a blessing. It just makes life
You've really decoded detachment for us. I think for a lot of us, detachment coming from meditation means that you become this nectar-lacking person who doesn't talk to people, doesn't engage. But what you just said is bang opposite.
It's the opposite.
You say you become more loving, more caring, more compassionate, yet you stay uninfluenced. I think that is something I'm really going to take back with me.
But you know, Sister Priya, I find that when you're detached, you can love someone when they're good. But as we know, everyone has their moments. And when you're attached, you're affected when they have bad moods, they get angry. Yeah. But when you're detached, you can keep loving them when they go through their stuff. Right. And so that's real love. Actually, to be truly loving, you have to be detached. Or uninfluenced is a better word, because in English that word is very unpopular. It just does not sound good. Yeah. And most people have that you're withdrawn and non-communicative, etc.
Thank you so much. Thank you for being with us. Thank you.
My pleasure.
To all our viewers, thank you for listening to us. I'm sure Brother Charlie has opened up newer perspectives to meditation and spirituality in general. For me, he has sort of busted a few myths. And I'm sure for all our viewers also, this has been an eye-opening episode wherein we see the real meaning of detachment. It's not talking to people, it's actually talking to them the same way, no matter how they respond to you. And you stay uninfluenced. Isn't that so powerful? Thank you for being with us. We hope that you're able to imbibe great learnings from this episode. Om Shanti.